What is up, Wizards fans? Welcome into another Believe in Wizards podcast. I'm Matt Modderno. Today, we're going to preview the Wizards' third preseason game against the Toronto Raptors. Obviously, the first preseason game against the Raptors did not go so well, but that's, nature of the beast in the preseason. But luckily, they looked almost as bad by the end of the second preseason game. So hopefully, that means they've been saving it all for this third preseason game. They're finally going to be at home. Game's at 7 p.m. again tonight, Friday, 7 p.m. on Monumental Sports Entertainment Network. So you can check them out. This is your preview show for it, so there won't be a pregame show immediately before the game tonight, but we will have a postgame show after the fact. Maybe just me again, and those of you who join us in the chat. We'll see if anybody else from the crew wants to jump on and go from there. Before we get into it, brought to you by Stateside Vodka and their Surfside Hard Iced Teas, Hard Lemonades. I'm going to go play some pickleball this afternoon, have a couple statesides. I'll be a couple Surfsides from stateside, and I'll be in pretty good spirits by the time the Wizards game starts. So hopefully they don't ruin the vibes there. Also brought to you by BetOnline. It's your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from MLB, golf, UFC, tennis, basketball picking up, hockey about to start off, and obviously the NFL's in full swing there too. So get the latest stats, news, and scores available for your favorite teams. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports, player props, odds, everything you can think of. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, so just a couple news, notes, things like that to keep an eye on during the game here tonight. Scotty Barnes is out, so that's kind of interesting. Or sorry, Scotty Barnes is back. Jeez, I'm all over the place here already. Scotty Barnes will be back in this preseason game. I don't think he'll play the whole thing, but he's finally cleared for contact after recovering from hand surgery at the end of last season. So I think they'll ease their way into this in the first preview show before the other preseason game I mentioned. I really want to see the Koulibaly Scotty Barnes matchup, just how Koulibaly, now that he's bulked up a little bit, does against a bigger, more physical guard like Barnes, or physical point forward like Barnes. I think will be really interesting. So I'm looking forward to that. So that'll be a nice matchup. RJ Barrett is the one that's not going to be out this game. He suffered a shoulder sprain against the Wizards in the first half of that game. So left early, never came back. And we won't see any of him tonight. So again, that's more focus that'll probably be on Barnes, and it'll be interesting to see how Koulibaly can go about kind of turning the water off for him and kind of slowing down what their offense can do overall. Emmanuel Quickly is also still out dealing with sprained thumb, so he's out indefinitely and is not even cleared for contact. So he probably won't play any of the preseason for the Raptors. So they're kind of down here a little bit. Obviously, getting Barnes is back, but like I said, he's not going to play the full game. So if you're the Wizards, I don't know if you care about winning preseason games necessarily. It's not the most important thing to them, but from a fan perspective, it'd be nice to just see them turn in, I don't know, let's say a more complete or comprehensive performance than they have thus far. They've played 2 or 3 good quarters in each of these games. I think it'd just be nice to get to a point where if they lose a preseason game, it's because they cleared the bench completely or whatever the case may be. If your starters play more minutes than their starters and you're still getting blown out, it's obviously that's part of the goal for this season, but you at least want to maintain some amount of competitiveness. I think you do start to lose players at some point in the season. Again, I know it's only preseason, but I just don't want this to be an omen or harbinger of things to come. At some point, you've got to put a reasonably competent product on the floor here, and that's not a thing that they've done yet. And you can get away with that for a while. But players will care eventually if they're getting blown out, and there's some amount of, well, it's also up to them because, right, they're the one out on the floor, playing a certain way. But if you're the front office, you've got to put a decent product out there. And they tried to add a few veterans in the offseason, obviously, and just those guys have not performed particularly well, nor have the vets that they retained from last year's team. Kuzma has looked largely pretty putrid through 2 games so far, or disinterested is honestly the best way I could frame it. Valanciunas looks slow and just sort of plodding to me at this point, which has been more of the case for him as his career has gone on. But this is even, a different level, I think, than we had seen from him thus far. So I just want, competence, competitiveness-ish. So the young guys have enough reasonable vets around them to show and put their best foot forward. And I think when the better older players struggle and still take a high usage, it detracts from what the younger guys are able to do. And that really is like my main interest level for this whole season is just how do we put Sarr and Koulibaly and George and Carrington in the best light possible? So you need a certain amount of production from Kuzma and Jordan Poole. Poole's very good in the first game. He didn't shoot well in the second game. I don't think he was necessarily like the biggest problem for them on the court, despite the inefficiency. But it was not a great game either. So I think even the most ardent of Poole fans would say that the first game was considerably better than the second game. So we just need him to make shots and no 25-foot heaves, at the beginning of the shot clock with nobody really guarding you. So that's all I'm looking for, right? Like just do enough to set those guys up. I thought the playmaking balance for Poole was much better in the first game, and I thought that allowed people like Sarr to really shine, and that's what I want from him, right? Like understand the assignment. I want Kuzma to do more playmaking and just sort of less running up and down the court, getting cardio, which is kind of honestly what it seemed like. And hopefully they've had that conversation, as a coaching staff with these older vets of like what really we're expecting of you. Valanciunas, I think, will probably play more minutes than he did the first two, just as they're starting to slowly scale him back up. And then maybe he doesn't play like the last preseason game or whatever the case may be. But, it's just an opportunity to see what these guys are really about. And this is not a particularly important game, I think, matchup wise for the Wizards to get Valanciunas a lot of minutes. Like Jakob Poeltl is not a huge threat in the paint where you need a big bruising center to offset him. So is Sarr at the 5 good enough for this? Or can you give Bagley a few more minutes next to Sarr or something? Just something that keeps up a little bit better. I think the likely starting 5 for Toronto in this one is probably Davion Mitchell, Grady Dick, Scotty Barnes, Jonathan Mogbo, and Jakob Poeltl again. Maybe you could see, Ochai Agbaji or somebody flip-flop with Mogbo there, depending on what they think. But either way, that's a fast, smaller sized unit that I think is going to run and try to push the pace. And if you're the Wizards, you got to try to match that or keep up, or you could get run off the floor quicker than anybody would like to see. Also, shout out Nomadic Brian and Mr. Al in the chat here. Appreciate you guys. Nomadic Brian said 25 plus point margins are concerning. Totally agree. Mr. Al said, I just want to see them keep it less than a 20-point game for the majority of the game. Totally agree. And he wasn't expecting to see JP regress to the heaving distance shots. 100% agree there too. It just looked like they were totally out of sync in large stretches of that Knicks game. And I think it's one of those things where when everybody else is just sort of doing whatever they want, Poole sort of defaults to that a little bit more too. So it's maybe more of a symptom than the actual problem itself, but it's still, you need better from, your high usage starting point guard. So agreed, but we'll see. Back to that starting 5 for Toronto. It'd be interesting to see the Wizards just start Sarr at the 5 and maybe put Kispert or somebody in the starting lineup just to like match them a little more directly. I just think we've seen enough even through 2 preseason games to know that this Poole, Koulibaly, Kuzma, Sarr, Valanciunas starting 5 is probably not going to be, their best starting 5 or 5-man unit from a plus minus perspective over the course of the season. To know, like, let's just try something different. That the experimentation here would be an appealing thing to see from Brian Keefe at this point. With the Wizards, same injuries as the first game. Sadiq Bey still obviously out for probably likely the whole season, or at least the majority of it. And Malcolm Brogdon, the team has since said probably 6 to 8 weeks at a minimum. I think they said, evaluate him around that period. So wouldn't shock me if it's longer, which is obviously not ideal for him or the team, but it really takes one of your veteran guys you expected to be a solid, stable. It's just so much harder, like, to convince a team to take on someone like Brogdon if there's just no sense that he can stay healthy long enough for him to be able to impact something for them. Like, you're just not going to get anything back unless he's like a trade filler. And similarly for Valanciunas, like, again, preseason, you can shrug some of these things off and maybe he'll start the regular season and hit the ground running and it won't matter. But if you're another team that needs a center and you've been keeping an eye on him, I don't think anything you've seen through the first 2 games is like particularly exciting or appealing to you. So, who knows what that looks like. Matt Bryant said work on cutting down the turnovers. I totally agree. You can't have 30 turnovers in a game like they did against New York, especially when the team you're playing against only has 8 of them. And it doesn't matter how poorly a team like the Knicks shoots in a game like that. Like you cannot win a basketball game when you give them that much of a head start. And it seemed like every one of those turnovers led to a pick six. I didn't actually look to see how many of they converted on, but it felt like we gave up so many free points as a team, and that's just really not it's not a valuable evaluation period for the rest of your team either. If you can't see anyone play defense if you're not actually matched up enough to do that. So we'll see how it goes. Mr. House said, I feel like everyone is doing their own thing out there, and JP should take a page out of Jared Butler's book and be their on court coach. Yeah, I agree. Just the game manager pool who calls his own number when he needs to is awesome. You would always hear the thing about like some of the best point guards would just like make sure certain other guys got a certain amount of touches first before they took their first couple shots. And I get it's like a new era of basketball, and a point guard really kind of means combo scoring guard almost across the board. But still, the veteran guys have that right balance of when to create and when to, kind of do their own thing. And I thought he did that really well in the first game. It kind of all fell apart in the second game. So hopefully they can show him the tape of the two differences and say, like, hey, this is what we're looking for from here. Just keeping through, some of the other general storylines going in this game. It's to me, it's obviously veterans and rookies, and you're evaluating them on two totally different set of criteria. For the veterans, I want to see that they can play efficiently, be as versatile as possible, and make themselves as valuable to as many potential trade suitors as possible. And also put the younger guys in a position to be successful. And for the younger guys, I just want to see like I don't really care about shooting percentages. Like the difference between SAR and SAR in game one and two was just one shots went in the first game, and in game two they didn't. But same amount of aggressiveness, assertiveness. I thought when he did get to the rim and things like that, he finished with aggression and went up strong. And that's kind of what you want to see from him throughout. Keyshawn George had a much better second game, probably the best of the three rookies in the second game, but he just wasn't shy. There was no hesitation. He put the ball on a lot, on the floor and just did his thing. Bub Carrington, again, sort of just fearless. I actually thought he was like doing some things on defense and at least trying to like present a physical opposition to the other team and get in people's way and bump them a little bit, and varying degrees of success. But that's what you're going to expect from him, throughout his rookie year here. Mr. Al says Keyshawn George was wonderful. I think this is Bub's turn to have a wonderful preseason game. Yeah, totally agree. I think like he's due for one big one here, and that would get folks kind of back on board and excited again just to see him have his particular standout game. I also just think that this is a good matchup for Sar, like I talked about, especially at the five when he's running and getting looks in transition, and you can get him a little confidence going, and he sees the ball go through the net a few times. That's when he starts to like seem to shine. So just get him some easy ones. Let him be a rim runner in transition. Honestly, like this is a bad comp because Sar actually already plays defense, but use him the way the Wizards used Thomas Bryant when he first got here. Like Thomas Bryant was like getting free buckets because he was the absolute first guy down the court every time. Sar's young, athletic. He's going to be probably younger and faster and a better athlete than almost every center you could match him up with. So while he might be a mismatch for them from the bigger guys physically, it's going to be a mismatch the other way too, where they have to keep up with him. And if you play like a slogging, slow pace with him out there, it doesn't really take advantage of the thing he offers most, which is that sort of mobility. So I would just try to find ways to get him a couple easy things going to the rim and run outs and stuff like that too. So hopefully we see another good game from Sar and just a few more shots go through the hoop. So that would be nice. Again, if you're the Wizards, you're pretty much locked into the Cooper Flag sweepstakes at this point. Like I know certain folks are worried, like, oh, some of these other teams are blowing it up. It's just they're behind the eight ball when it comes to trying to catch up to where the Wizards are at in terms of like, just uh, doing these things. So we'll see. We'll just kind of keep looking forward to what the Wizards do from here on out. If you're Brian Keefe right now, like please, 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 just experiment as much as humanly possible. Like that's all we're looking for from you is just do your thing and try like every single possible combination you can, because some of these guys you don't really know what you have with them, and you don't know who best unlocks them yet either. Uh, I still really like Jared Butler minutes, so I would like to see a way for him to get on the court a little bit more. I want to see more Vucevic. some of the older, less heralded guys. Like I don't need to see a ton of Marvin Bagley preseason minutes. I don't need to see Rashawn Holmes getting in there. I don't need to see Gill. I get you want them to get out there and stretch their legs and things like that, but you really should be evaluating who can help you once the real game starts. And you know what those guys are already. They're proven commodities, but all these other lineup combinations are how you start to unlock some of these other guys and see what, works for them most and what's most successful. Similarly, like for Toronto, they were doing different stuff, like a lot of weird kind of combos played together. And I like that. Honestly, I thought Jamal Shed was probably better than Davion Mitchell. They played like reasonably close to the same amount of minutes. And I just thought they were just like more productive, when Shed was on the court. But not that Mitchell had necessarily a bad game. He's just sort of low usage enough that it doesn't really hurt you. And both guys are going to defend. Like that's competitive in a preseason game because it's just when you're not structured, guys like that are going to make you pay for it because they're locked in defensively. And that's sort of the one thing I'm missing so far from, the Wizards backcourt is just sort of consistent locked in perimeter defense right now. Like that's just not going to be Poole's game. And I think they would be better served like finding someone that best complements him in a way that he can do that. Like he's got to do so much offensively when you put him next to Koulibaly in the backcourt because Koulibaly is not giving you much offensively right now. And as good as he is defensively, it's just still, when you're putting him on the best guy and they're kind of isolated on an island, it also takes away his ability to like help out from Poole when those situations arise too. So just need to figure out some different, matchups here that makes sense. It's why I'm more excited about like a Carrington Koulibaly level backcourt long term. But we're still a ways away from that, so we'll see how it looks. But yeah, just vets, make shots, be solid, don't do dumb shit, don't turn the ball over a ton. Honestly, most of the turnovers that were the most problematic and troubling came from the older guys. Like Kuzma just like had a couple like passes to nobody essentially. Poole had a couple just like loose handle turnovers. I don't even know what Valanciunas was doing for certain stretches, and those are just like three guys. Like, if you're not here to be solid, what are you here to do? So anyway, hopefully that's a little bit better. We'll check in on the pregame or on the postgame show and see what actually worked out or what didn't. So, let's just hope and have our fingers crossed for a better, more productive night here tonight for the Wizards. Again, the game is at 7 p.m. on Monumental Sports Network. The Wizards are hosting the Toronto Raptors. It's their third preseason game. They are 0-2. I went and looked and just saw like offensive and defensive rankings for the preseason so far. So through 2 games, the Wizards are the bottom 5 on both offense and defense and points per game. So just haven't really shown much. Again, it's preseason, but I think it is probably an expectation of what we're in for this year is just probably bottom 5 in both. Shout out to my guys DJ and Damo, who were talking through bold predictions on DJ's Chocolate City Hoops podcast. And, both of them had on there that the Wizards could find a way to be top 15 in defense. And again, bold prediction. The goal there is to be hot takey. I totally understand that. I have seen nothing thus far that makes me feel confident that they'll be top 25 in defense, but that is a thing that you control. Like there is defensive potential. It's just when you rely on that many young guys that just don't know how to play NBA defense yet, and you rely on so many veterans who are just sort of opting not to play NBA defense for most of the game, I just don't think they can get there. So on paper, I agree with those guys. There's talent to be better defensively this year than they were last year. I just don't have any real expectation that they'll get that. So hopefully I'm wrong. And tonight everything just clicks and people are locking in. Again, when you do have young guys, it takes them a while to kind of learn things, and maybe they'll just pick some of this stuff up and buy into the defensive system a little bit more. And hopefully the veterans are playing their way into shape and stuff like that, and that can help them too. So we'll see. We'll get to all that more throughout the course of the season here. We'll also talk about it on tonight's pregame show. If you are watching this on YouTube, please, 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 is the one thing I ask you guys, hit that like button for us. If you get a couple hundred likes, but like 6 or a couple hundred, views and you get 6 likes or whatever, it's what it is. But please just, if you watch it, hit that button. That makes the show more discoverable for other fans. And that's really the incentive to keep doing this stuff, is that it can get out there to more people and we can keep sharing and spread the word. I really appreciate you all for watching and checking in. Again, give us feedback on these pregame and postgame shows. If there's certain things you want us to touch on that you're not. Tonight we'll be having the second ever awarding, hopefully, or not hopefully, maybe they all play so good you don't need it, but We debuted the Alexei Petrov I Get Buckets Son MVP award for player who was sort of most willing to just heave the ball at the rim without conscience. So we'll see if anybody deserves that award after tonight's game. Maybe they'll be so efficient that there are no winners. That'd be a best case scenario. But if not, we'll have a little fun with it, and we'll see where to go from there. As always, we're presented by betonline.ag, and we will catch you all next time.